The sky over the planet Kalora was a strange mix of violet and gold, painting the jagged mountains and thick forests in surreal colors. The native creatures of Kalora were fierce, shaped by centuries of evolution in a harsh and unforgiving environment. Among them, none were more feared than the apex predators, giant, four-legged beasts with armored hides, glowing eyes, and claws that could tear through rock. No one dared to approach them, except for one human. Captain Elias Ward had been sent as part of an interstellar research team to study Kalora's wildlife. The human delegation was small, mostly scientists, but Elias was different. He was a former military officer turned explorer, known not only for his courage but also for his strange ability to understand animals. On Kalora, that talent would soon become legendary. The day had started like any other. Elias and the team had been tracking one of the apex predators, a creature known locally as Kravok, whose size and strength were unmatched. It had been spotted near the northern cliffs, and the team had hoped to observe it from a safe distance. However, as they approached, they realized something unusual. The creature was limping, its massive legs stained with dark blood. "Someone needs to stay back," one of the scientists whispered, fear evident in her voice. "We can't get close to it. If it sees us..." Elias shook his head. "It won't attack if we don't threaten it. We just need to help. It's hurt." The team hesitated. Even trained explorers, people who had been to war zones on distant planets, felt their hearts pound at the sight of the Kravok. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of a human, with scales that shimmered in shades of deep blue and violet. Its eyes were intelligent, almost sorrowful, and its breathing was heavy and labored. Elias knelt at a distance first, speaking softly in a calm, steady voice. He had learned over years that animals responded to tone more than words. Slowly, carefully, he began approaching the wounded leg where a jagged rock had pierced the Kravok's thick hide. The predator growled, a sound that reverberated through the cliffs like rolling thunder. "Easy, easy," Elias murmured. He could feel the tension in the air, the team behind him frozen with fear. But he didn't flinch. He had faced worse than this, and he knew that panicking would only make the creature defensive. Then, something remarkable happened. The predator's growl softened, and it watched him, almost as if it understood that he meant no harm. Elias moved closer, pulling out a portable medical kit. Bandages, antiseptic gels, and specialized healing nanites for wildlife, all designed to handle alien biology, were carefully arranged. The Kravok flinched as he cleaned the wound, but it didn't attack. The team whispered among themselves. How is he doing that?" one of the scientists asked. He's human," another replied, awe in his voice. "But no human should be able to calm a Kravok like that." Elias worked slowly, speaking to the creature, telling it that it would be okay. The Kravok's massive head lowered slightly, and it allowed him to apply the healing gel. Sparks of bioluminescence glowed where the nanites touched the wound, knitting tissue and sealing the tear. Within minutes, the bleeding had stopped, and the predator flexed its leg cautiously. Then a sound broke the moment, a low, rumbling growl from the cliffs above. Another predator, even larger than the first, had appeared. Its eyes glinted with suspicion and territorial rage. The first Kravok rose slightly, growling at the newcomer, but Elias stepped forward, hands raised, calm and steady. "Wait," he said softly. "It's okay. I'm not here to fight." The new predator hesitated, studying the human, and then something impossible happened. It too backed down, not out of fear but out of recognition. It had seen the bond forming between Elias and the wounded Kravok. In that instant, the other predator understood. This human was not an enemy. The team watched in stunned silence. Humans had never been considered a force in Kalora's wilds. They were fragile, slow, and weak compared to the planet's apex hunters. Yet here was Elias, moving with authority not through weapons or violence, but through calm confidence and understanding. Hours passed. Elias stayed with the Kravok, ensuring that it could move without pain. He talked to it in low tones, letting the predator smell and study him, building trust. The scientists observed, taking notes, their jaws dropping at every small miracle. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fiery orange and purple, the Kravok stood fully on its legs, able to walk without limping. "Is it safe?" the lead scientist asked, still shaking. Elias nodded. "For now. But we must leave it be. It will go back to its territory. It knows I won't hurt it, and it won't try to hurt me." As they retreated back to the research base, Elias felt something strange, a warmth in his chest, a connection he had never experienced before. The Kravok's eyes had followed him until the last possible moment. Then it turned and disappeared into the forest, leaving only the echo of its growls behind. Back at the base, the team gathered around a holographic screen, reviewing the footage they had captured. "This is unbelievable," the scientist said. "No one has ever healed an apex predator before. No one has ever interacted with them like this. Humans, they're not supposed to be able to do this." Elias shrugged, trying to appear modest. "I just treat them like they're alive. Because they are. They're not monsters. They're just trying to survive." But deep down he felt a stirring of something far more profound. He had spent his life in battlefields and space stations, surrounded by machines and orders. Here on Kailora, among creatures no one dared approach, he had discovered something new. Humans could matter, even to beings far stronger and more terrifying than themselves. Later that night, as Elias gazed out at the glowing forests, he felt movement behind him. Turning slowly, he froze. The Kravok, the very same predator he had healed, stood silently at the edge of the forest. Its eyes glimmered with intelligence, almost as if it remembered every moment of their encounter. Then, with a suddenness that startled him, it disappeared again into the darkness, leaving him with a chilling realization. He hadn't just healed it. Somehow, it had chosen him. The humans at the base would never understand what that meant. To them, it was a remarkable act of bravery, a rare success in wildlife research. But Elias knew better. Something about Kailora's apex predators had changed tonight, and somehow their lives were now connected to his. He returned to his quarters, mind racing, heart pounding. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of glowing eyes, immense claws, and a bond that transcended fear and species. By morning, the story of Elias Ward's courage had already spread through the research team. Yet no one dared ask the question that lingered in their minds. Why had the Kravok chosen him? Why had an apex predator, the ultimate hunter of Kailora, trusted a human when nothing else on the planet had dared to approach it? Elias didn't have answers, but he knew one thing for certain. Kailora had tested him and he had passed. Somehow humans, fragile, small, seemingly insignificant humans, could matter here, could survive here, could even command respect from creatures that had ruled this world for eons. And as he looked out at the violet gold horizon, he realized that this was only the beginning. The Kravok would return, and when it did, it would not be as a wild predator. It would be something more, something that recognized him as more than human, and that realization, more than anything, sent a shiver down his spine. The next morning, Kailora's forests seemed even more alive than before. The sun painted the leaves in shades of amber and gold, and the air vibrated with the calls of alien birds and insects. Elias Ward felt it in his bones. Something was watching him. Something intelligent. He had returned to the site where he had healed the Kravok, hoping for even the slightest sign of its presence. Hours passed, and he saw nothing until the ground trembled beneath his feet. A low, rolling growl echoed through the cliffs. Heart racing, Elias turned slowly. There, emerging from the mist, was the Kravok. It was larger than he remembered, its scales glinting in sunlight like armor. But the thing that caught his attention most was its eyes, no longer just intelligent, but almost human in their recognition. It took careful steps forward, its massive body moving with surprising grace. Elias instinctively held out his hand. The predator paused, sniffed the air, and then knelt slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement he couldn't quite describe. It was as if the creature was saying, "I remember you." Elias crouched to its level. "I remember you too," he murmured. "Are you okay?" The Kravok nudged his hand gently with its snout, the sound like a low rumble of trust. For the first time, Elias realized that the creature wasn't just a wild animal. Somehow it understood him. Somehow it had formed a bond that transcended species. Days passed, and Elias continued to visit the Kravok. He named it Arkan. The research team stayed at a safe distance, unable to comprehend what was happening. Scientists had studied Kailora's predators for decades, but no one had ever seen one form a connection with a human. It was unheard of. Arkan began to follow Elias at a distance, observing, learning, and even protecting him from smaller predators. Other humans in the research party began to notice the difference. Small threats in the forest seemed to vanish when Elias was near. A sense of respect, perhaps even fear, emanated from the planet's creatures toward him. But it wasn't just Arkan. Elias soon discovered that Kaelora itself seemed to respond to him. Trees and plants subtly shifted as he passed, and smaller creatures that had been skittish now approached curiously. The humans began whispering about him, calling him a chosen human, though none understood what that truly meant. One afternoon, while exploring a canyon near the northern cliffs, Elias and Arkan encountered a new threat, one far more dangerous than anything they had faced before. A pack of apex-level predators larger and stronger than Arkan emerged from the rocks. Their eyes glowed red, signaling aggression. They had never seen Elias before and clearly did not recognize him. The pack advanced, growling and snapping. Elias froze for a moment, heart hammering, but Arkan stepped forward, its massive body a shield between him and the new predators. Its growl shook the canyon and the pack hesitated, sensing Arkan's dominance. Elias raised his hand, speaking softly. "It's okay. I won't hurt you," he murmured. But the pack didn't listen. They charged. Arkan roared, a deafening sound that vibrated through Elias's chest, and lunged at the pack. The fight was brutal but brief. Arkan moved with precision, striking only where necessary, and the pack finally retreated, wounded and wary. Elias stood silently, staring at Arkan, and something dawned on him. Arkan wasn't just a predator. It was a guardian. Somehow it had accepted Elias as part of its world, a human worthy of trust and respect, and in return it was willing to fight to protect him, even against its own kind. That night, back at the base, Elias reflected on the day's events. The scientists were both awed and frightened. No human should be able to command an apex predator like that. One of them whispered. "It's unnatural." Elias shook his head. "It's not unnatural," he said quietly. "It's human. We have something they don't: connection, understanding, compassion, and sometimes that matters more than strength." Weeks passed. Arkan began to reveal abilities Elias hadn't noticed before. It could sense danger, communicate through subtle gestures, and even lead Elias to hidden resources in the forest: fresh water, medicinal plants, and safe shelters. The bond was growing stronger every day, and Elias began to understand that this wasn't just survival, it was partnership. Then, one morning, the research team received a warning. A massive storm was approaching, one that could devastate the forest and put everyone in danger. The humans scrambled to evacuate equipment, but Elias had a different concern. He knew Arkan and the other creatures would be trapped, unable to escape on their own. Without hesitation, he followed Arkan into the forest, moving through the thick underbrush as the wind began to howl. Rain started falling in heavy sheets and the terrain grew treacherous. Yet Arkan led him confidently, navigating paths humans couldn't see, guiding him to pockets of safety. Hours later they arrived at a cave sheltered from the storm. Arkan had already gathered other creatures, smaller predators, timid herbivores, and even some alien birds. It was as if the apex predator had become a protector, not just for Elias, but for all life around it. Elias stood in the cave, drenched and exhausted, realizing the full magnitude of what had happened. Humans had always believed that strength came from weapons, numbers, and technology, but here on Kaelora he understood something different. Strength came from understanding, trust, and the ability to connect. The storm raged for 2 days. Elias and Arkan remained in the cave side by side. The predators that had once terrified him now accepted him, recognizing him as part of their world. He saw the forest in a new light, the balance of life, the relationships that existed between predator and prey, and now, the bridge that a human could become. When the storm finally passed, Kaelora was transformed. Rivers had shifted, cliffs had crumbled, and new paths had appeared. But the creatures survived, guided and protected by Arkan and Elias. The humans, who had doubted the significance of one individual, realized that Elias had done what none of them could. He had proven that humans could be more than fragile observers. In the weeks that followed, Elias became a legend among the research team. Stories of his bond with Arkan spread across colonies, inspiring scientists, explorers, and even military leaders. They called it the human miracle, a fragile species earning respect not through domination but through compassion and intelligence. But Elias knew the truth. This was not a miracle of humans alone. It was a partnership, a shared understanding between species. Arkan had chosen him, trusted him, and in doing so, had revealed something far greater. Humans could shape worlds not by force, but by courage, empathy, and the willingness to reach out across boundaries. Months later, as Elias watched Arkan disappear into the violet gold forests once more, he felt a sense of peace. Kailora's predators would always remember him, and more importantly, he had learned to see the strength in being human. Strength was not just in weapons, or in dominance, or in survival. Strength was in heart, in mind, and in the bonds one could forge, even with the most terrifying creatures in the galaxy. And somewhere, deep in the forests of Kailora, the apex predator waited, not as a beast but as a guardian, a silent reminder that humans, fragile as they might seem, could earn respect in a universe that had never expected it. Elias smiled. He didn't know what challenges lay ahead, what dangers the universe might send next, but he did know this. Wherever humans went, wherever they faced the impossible, they carried something the galaxy had never fully understood. The ability to matter, the ability to connect, the ability to be human, and to inspire even the fiercest of creatures to recognize it. And with that, he stepped forward into the forest, side by side with Arkan, ready for whatever lay ahead.